Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is our NFL preview show, week number 1, in full, in completion. We finally had it. No Hall of Fame games to worry about, but this is where everybody got a chance to play in a long weekend. Brian LaBelle, who joins me, starting on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, 4 days, back to back to back to back. Lots of football action, and we're going to talk about some of that today. But NFL preseason is in full swing.
Yeah, week 1 in the books. Some good, some bad, some ugly. I guess it just depends on your perspective, depends on what team you're following, and I guess what you're looking forward to. Camp battle still in full effect. Some guys kind of separate themselves from the pack as far as like who's going to be the second string, who's going to be the third string, starters getting some reps for a certain team. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, give me an impression in your mind's eye. You said the good, the bad, and the ugly. Give me one good, one bad, one ugly.
I'll start with the ugly. The Bengals defense was ugly.
Okay.
There was a lot of good, actually. A lot of stuff we'll talk about. Cam Little was one of the good things. That was pretty cool to witness. I know it's preseason, it doesn't count, but it was still pretty cool.
Right.
A lot of young quarterbacks looked really good. So that's always good for the league when the young guys can come in and, I know it's preseason, it doesn't really matter, but when guys kind of say, hey, I kind of understand, get the flow of things, getting the timing down, understanding the scheme that you're running. I know it's day one install stuff, but it's still good to see. And then some of the injuries, you hate to see it, but it kind of brings it to debate. Do you play these guys in the preseason? Do we have more preseason, less preseason? But some big name guys went down too. Some of them were like practice injuries as well. I think Rashawn Slater was a practice injury. It wasn't even a preseason football injury. So it's just, it's part of the game. It happens. You got to be ready for it. That's why you roster as many guys as you do.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit of that. But first, let's talk about what we discussed last week. The biggest concern in training camp at the time, the one that was making all the noise and all the media wanted to talk about, the holdouts, or at least the guys that wanted more money, Micah Parsons, Terry McLaurin. Give me your update in terms of has there been any progress on either side to where we're closer to seeing a deal being made, or are we still in the ugly stage where in my opinion, where you've got two sides that are on opposite ends of the room and they're not getting any closer?
Well, there's no new updates, obviously, from what we've had last week. Nothing really earth moving. I know that both sides, are just kind of going to hold pat for a little bit. Nothing really needs to happen until you start getting the real football, the week 1 stuff. But for now, it's just, you could argue either side. The longer that a deal isn't done, it looks more likely that they get traded, and the longer a deal doesn't get done, or there's not a movement where the guy is traded, they're coming back. It's the business of the game. It's how it works. More likely than not, especially in Parsons' case, I don't really see him getting moved. And Terry's more interesting because, he's a 30-year-old or soon to be 30-year-old receiver, but his numbers were great. He's done a lot for the team. Like we touched on all this last week, but Washington's holding pat. He seems to be holding pat. Nothing really changing from when we did this a week ago.
Well, just to update some folks, neither of these contracts need to be renegotiated. It's not like they're going into training camp or into the season without a contract already in place. They're looking for extensions. They're looking for a raise, and they need a change to the contract in order to do that. With Micah Parsons, the interesting thing for him, he's at the last end. He's the last year of his contract.
Yeah.
So if he were to be traded, let's say, he would play this year for his set aligned contract value, and then you have to hope that you can negotiate with his agent an extension to the new team that he would join, and for whatever amount that would be, which would obviously include a raise. Or he stays with the Cowboys, he plays this entire season, and then he becomes a free agent at the end of the year. Is that the basic overview of the way his contract stands right now and what the Cowboys stand to either gain or lose, whether or not they keep him or they trade him?
Yeah, I think the latter of that, though, if he's in a position where he plays out his contract and he just walks, I think the Cowboys fans might be knocking down Jerry Jones's door. There's going to be a massive asking price. I think we kind of touched on it last week, where if a team does trade for Parsons, they're probably looking at multiple firsts and a couple of players, and you're going to have to kind of give him whatever he wants. So a team that would trade for him at the negotiating table would immediately start their hands tied behind their backs because, hey, we gave a lot to bring this guy in. Now, I guess if you waited, I guess if this kind of went on towards trade deadline, which is, that's months off, so it'd be difficult to see that happening until now. But maybe a team that's looking to add a piece for a late run. But if you're a competitive team in the playoffs, but I don't know. Right now, it's the Wild West with him. Obviously, he wants more money. I mean, you could argue he deserves more money, but it's Jerry's world, and they're just living in it down there. So we'll see what happens.
Well, oddly enough, one of the great trades of all time was when Herschel Walker and a host of Minnesota Vikings swapped spots. And oddly enough, at the end of Tom Landry's career, Jimmy Johnson was hired by Jerry Jones, and he had a boatload of draft picks over the next 2 years. And not too soon afterwards, the Dallas Cowboys were meaningful. They're going deep in the playoffs, and they're winning Super Bowls. So I don't know if Micah Parsons is the same type of player, whether or not there'd be multiple players, but it is a curious statement that we can address now because that's what everybody's doing. Oh, let's look at the wildest of all the scenarios and let's see what happens. But obviously a very talented player. And McLaurin is a little bit different. You mentioned something before we went on the air about one, he's making about $23 million this year. So it's hard to cry foul for a guy that is being well paid. Right. But his contribution to the Redskins, and especially their ascension, one game away from going to the Super Bowl, really one half. They played okay, but they couldn't beat the Eagles, and that is what it is. But they're a good football team, and they have a chance to be a great one if they keep him there. But is there really that much to argue over $7 million?
Well, I think it's a slippery slope when you get these young teams, especially you get your quarterback situation figured out. You have a decent contract there. You're not paying him an arm and a leg like, what the Bills are paying, what the Bengals are paying, what the Chiefs are paying, what these other teams pay once you have to actually fork over the money that your quarterback is worth. But they got a lot of guys that are on the cheap. They got a lot of cap space, and obviously you'd like to keep it that way. But at a certain point, once you start to succeed, once you start to win football games, you get more and more of, hey, I've been here for a lot of that. You need to pay me. You need to, give me my fair share, and I think I'm deserving of it because in Terry's case, like we said last week, he was here for a lot of bad. He stuck it out, and now he's here for the good. And like you said, this was the second best team in the NFC, right? You could argue this is the third or fourth best team in the league last year. And if you take Terry off this roster, it becomes like Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz. A lot of the supporting cast doesn't look as good if you remove Terry from the equation. I don't think the team is nearly as good. So Washington's kind of put themselves in a tough spot, and they're going to have to make a decision here sooner rather than later because you don't want to start going to week 1, week 2, week 3 where you have probably the second best guy in your offense off the field. But if you are going to trade him or do something, move on from him, you're going to have to do it sooner rather than later as well because you're going to need the support, you need the help. Try to keep as many talented guys around Jaden Daniels as you can to help him succeed. That's the plan here, and this is kind of the first test and willing to see if they're fully bought into that or if it's just kind of, smoke.
Well, we'll see. I don't anticipate any quick answers to this. It might be just before the season starts, after the third preseason game, and there's that break for a week, and maybe they get something done there. But it hasn't been settled, so we're going to still assume that it's going to be one of those things that will linger all the way through the end of training camp and into the regular season. We'll see. Let's look at some of the scores, Brian, if you don't mind. Here's one of the things that I wanted to go over. Of all the 16 games that were played, 8 of them had scores like this. In Philadelphia, the Eagles 34, Bengals 27.
Yeah.
Let's go to Carolina. Browns 30, Panthers 10. Those are Thursday and Friday's game, another Friday game. In New England, Patriots 48, Commanders 18. Yeah. On Saturday, Giants 34, at Bills 25. In Los Angeles, the Rams 31, Cowboys 21. In Jacksonville, Steelers 31, Jaguars 25. Jets 30, Packers 10. Broncos 30, at 49ers, score 9. There were some games that were close, like Tampa Bay scored 29, the Chargers had 27, and the Dolphins and the Bears ended in a tie at 24. I'm kind of liking seeing the scoreboard light up a little bit like this. It's kind of nice. I know the defenses don't like it, and especially if your team is on
Yeah.
defense, you don't like anybody being scored on. But early surprises, early anticipation. Whoa, I didn't know the team was going to be this good. I mean, the Patriots scored 48 points. Are you kidding me? I don't think they were going to get 48 points in 3 games in the regular season if you were to ask anyone in New England a couple weeks ago. But it's kind of nice that they're doing some things, and that first 2 weeks of practice has kind of paid off in terms of they're moving the ball, they're catching
Yeah.
the ball, they're blocking the right guy, and they end up doing it on a game day.
Yeah, if you're a fan of defense, this wasn't really a good week for you, except for a couple of teams. A lot of the young quarterbacks looked really, really good. A lot of the teams now, to be fair, you got first and second round picks who are coming out here, guys who are, SEC, Big Ten. I mean, they're first team players for those conferences, and they're coming out here playing against, second, third, fourth string guys around the league. So some of this is to be expected, but the offensive fireworks is kind of nice because the trend, at least the regular season, the last couple of years, has been, hey, guys aren't playing as much in the preseason, which we're seeing a little more of the opposite early on here. Offenses look really stagnant week 1, week 2, week 3, and it's kind of the way the game goes. And then offenses will catch up. And as you get into the meat and potatoes of the season, you'll see the scoreboard light up a little bit more. But some definite fireworks, some big plays from everybody all around the league. You could find plays from every single game. You're like, wow, this guy looks good, or highlighted, hey, I didn't know if this kid had it in him. But I mean, it's good to see the second, third string guys battling it out. It's always fun to say, hey, because a lot of these, the camp battle, it's over with. It's preseason time. You can battle in practice, but now it's like, hey, what can you do on the field? And certainly the offenses looked really, really good. The guys on the offensive side of the ball, I think, are sleeping a little easier as far as cuts are going this week.
Yeah, and address the fact that all these teams have meetings the following day, and coaches on the defensive side are going to be quickly making some changes, saying, "All right, this has got to stop." Now, even if you don't have your first or second team in, the guys that are in have got to make stops, and I'm sure there's plenty of errors that are made that the coaches are going to point out to the guys. Hey, you had the one guy, you took number 2, and because of that, the guy's wide open. He ends up getting a first down. We're going to correct those things, and they do.
Yeah, my thought process on the preseason is if you're going to make mistakes, you're going to mess up a lot. Let's do it here. Let's get all the mistakes. Let's get all the mental errors. Let's get everything out of the way early. Even though these guys aren't necessarily starters, which some of the teams did play their starters, so you do see some starters on defense that still look poor.
Play them some, like a quarter or maybe a half, but not much, nothing more than that.
Right, but if you're going to roster these guys at some point, if somebody gets hurt or something happens, you expect them to be able to go in and be game ready, right, in a regular season game, and that's it's expectations. That's hey, if you're going to be wearing this uniform come week 1, you have to be able to be ready to go in. You better ready to go into the fire, and it's preseason week 1, so this is as early as you're going to get, except for it was the Chargers, I believe, played the Hall of Fame game. I can't even remember. I think it was the Lions. Like they had an extra week, but everyone else, this is your first time on an NFL field with an official, with wearing full pads and going full go. So take everything with a grain of salt. I think it was the Steelers. I think both of their Super Bowl years, going back to the early 2010s, I think they went like 0-4 in the preseason both years. They won the Super Bowl. They looked abysmal. But you know what? If you can clean everything up and you can come out week 1 and it looks good, then more power to you.
Yeah, a year when Tony Dungy was there, the Colts go 1-5 and they go to the Super Bowl.
And they go to the Super Bowl,
yeah. But this is a coach's opportunity to get a chance to see somebody who may or may not make the team,
right,
or maybe on the developmental, right? You're going to keep them around, but you got to see what they can do. And that's an absolute must. And in some cases, you got to kick the rust off the tires of some of the veterans and just give them a chance to recycle their energy. And it doesn't have to be a long amount of time, but just get them back in because they may be on the bubble. There could be a draft pick or another guy that they signed to free agency, and you got to see what guys can do. So obviously part of the good was the amount of offense that we got to see here during the preseason week number 1. You mentioned the bad and the ugly. Well, let's get right to it. Some of the injuries that were took place. And I think the first and foremost, this is guard Landon Dickerson with Philadelphia.
3-time Pro Bowler, I believe.
Right meniscus knee injury in a practice that they had at Lincoln Field in Philadelphia. There were about 50,000 fans that got to go to this free practice. And he goes down, and with all due respect, I've been in Philadelphia. I know what the fans are like, but when he went down, They shut their mouths and they
Yep.
were quiet, and they waited till he was taken off on a stretcher. So meniscus surgery the following day. I can honestly tell you, I don't know how long a meniscus takes, but they are anticipating that Landon will be back for week 1. So he's got about a month before the first game of the season. I'm thinking week 2 or 3, just to be safe. I don't know, Brian, but I'm just giving your thoughts right now. This is a guy that cannot go down if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan. This is one of the keys to the best offensive line in professional sports right now.
Yeah. It's always concerning, but you'd rather him do it in the open practice, before your first preseason game than week 1. That's obviously, but the good news for this team is you get 4 other guys who are really, really good, and you trust your team, everyone else around him, to kind of pick it up a little bit. If pick up the slack, whereas you might not be nearly as good, but if you're still better than the other team that's lined up across from you, and you can win, that's awesome. Something like you said, maybe they baby it a little bit. Maybe he's ready week 1, but you kind of give him an extra week or 2 to say, okay, well, let's make sure, right? We don't want to re-aggravate it. We don't want you to do anything worse. So meniscus is tricky. I didn't know if it was a full tear or partial tear. I assume a partial, since it's just about a month. But
Yeah.
it's better safe than sorry, especially if a guy of his caliber, and especially a team who defending champs. They got higher aspirations than most, at least expectations. So let's stay as healthy as we can for January and hopefully February.
Yeah. Good news is that it wasn't serious. Good news that even though he went down hard, it wasn't a ACL, MCL, some of the more severe types of injuries.
Something, yeah.
And what I don't know is how tough this guy is. And he goes, I'm fine, when he really isn't. And in the back of the mind, he's just being tough, versus him being smart enough to say, it doesn't matter right now. Just get better and go in the weight room and go lift a little bit if you can. Do some bench and back work to stay strong, but stay off that knee for a while. We need you, buddy, especially in December and January, February. So, and be honest with yourself and with the doctors as well. Yes, I know you're tough enough to be able to play, but let's also elongate that career and make it go as long as we can possibly make it last.
Right.
This one's a little bit more serious. Hold on a second. Let me get my slide right. This is Maurice Norris.
Yeah.
He went down with a neck injury with Detroit here in Atlanta. The game was suspended.
Yeah.
Were there 10 minutes left to go in the game? And
it was almost a full quarter. Yeah, it was almost a full quarter.
Both coaches and the referees and everybody around said, we're not going to risk anything.
Right.
He was taken off in an ambulance. And the great news is that even though he spent the night in Atlanta, he got to fly back to Detroit. He's with the team now, and he's basically, I'm going to say only, Brian, he's only in concussion protocol now. He's going to have to sit for about a week or more. They're going to do retesting and evaluation for obvious reasons as time progresses. But the good news out of the bad news is that this didn't turn out to be a more serious injury, or at least not as bad as we thought it was when he first went down.
Yeah, we're grateful for that, obviously, because it looked really bad. I watched it live, so it didn't look good. It gets to the point too where when they kind of stop showing the replay and stop showing the reaction, you kind of know something's up. And good on the broadcast team for doing that. But it's things like this happen. The good news is this wasn't too incredibly serious, and hopefully he makes a full recovery. I know Dan Campbell was saying he was talking and some of those things like, hey, movement in all his extremities, it looked like just a pretty severe concussion, which is still bad in itself, but it's better than what it looked like initially. It looked really nasty, and happy, wishing him a full recovery, and hoping he's all right.
Yeah, not only does he get back out on the field quickly if it warrants, but let's give credit to where it's due with the training staffs and all the emergency guys that were around to take care of him and reduce the risk and minimize it. So well done on that part. This one's a little bit more serious, Brian. This is Alexander Madison, running back with the Dolphins. He was injured on a carry against the Chicago Bears in Chicago and hurts his neck pretty badly. He has to come off the field. This is why this is more serious for me. He spent the night in Chicago, and the following day they did surgery on him in Chicago. So he didn't even get back to Miami with the team.
Yeah.
I don't know the severity of that, but I do know that that is more of an emergency situation where even the other team is going, yeah, we're going to trust your doctor up there, somewhere else, wherever there is. It
Yeah.
usually doesn't happen. The player doesn't get a chance to get a second opinion. So that to me meant that this was, we have to right now reduce and take pressure off of the spinal column or whatever the specifics were of it. I'm just generalizing right now, so folks don't get mad at me. I'm just saying season-ending surgery for him, and hopefully he is able to wear a uniform should he choose to do so later on in his life. But for right now,
Yeah.
football seems over for this young man out of Miami. Bad news.
Yeah, no, you feel bad for him because I mean he had some really good years backing up Dalvin Cook there in Minnesota. He was Dalvin would
Yep,
battle some injuries himself, and
yep,
he'd fill right in. He had some really good games for them. Kind of could do everything. Good at catching the ball out of the backfield. Good at making cuts and making guys miss. I fight to keep a roster spot in Miami. He looked pretty promising too. A lot of people really liked him. He looked good in camp.
yep,
Having anything neck wise obviously is always going to be serious.
yep.
The fact they did it immediately and he's already ruled out for the year is heartbreaking. You hate to hear that for him, and you're happy he's okay. But whatever, like you said, whatever he chooses to do next, his decision. But whatever happens, hey, you wish him the best. You wish him a speedy recovery, and whether it's back on a football field, whatever he chooses to do next in life, all the power to him, and you wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, the teammates, as you mentioned, they saw it. He was blocking well, big dude, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he was blowing some holes all over the place. The offensive line must love him then when he's doing that, and carrying the ball in between the tackles on some of
yeah.
your short yardage and goal line plays. But for obvious reasons, that's a pretty serious injury. Here's one that took place during the week. This is C.J. Garner-Johnson here with the Titans. Knee injury. Um, at first, they thought it was going to be really bad, but right now it's just basically a precautionary thing. It was in practice on Thursday, and he is expected to return for week number 1.
Yes. It's one of those weird things because usually what a team fears can like an ACL injury, right? ACL, MCL. Typically, that's going to be the case, right? Like, hey, you have training staff, some of the best in the world, right? Their job is to test and initially say, hey, can you move it like this? What happens? We put pressure here. Obviously, it's like going to the doctor, but it's a little more advanced than that. But it's rare to be on the other end of that where they're wrong, and say, hey, we thought it was his ACL, we thought it was done. It's not the case. It's intact. He should be able to play, which is awesome to hear. Good news for him. It's good news for the Texans. That hey, you're happy to see it. Anytime you can avoid a serious injury like that, it's a good day.
Here's some good news. We've had some bad and ugly. Here's some good news. In Tennessee, you're getting your starting center now. Lloyd Cashionberry has been activated. He was injured in week 9 last year against Patriots. He tore his Achilles, and he has passed all of the protocol for the Titans. He passed his physical, which is first and foremost, and everybody is expecting him to make a full and complete recovery. We're going to say that he has been Brian Callahan, their head coach, says we feel good about where he is right now, but they haven't seen him go full speed and go live against a guy wearing another colored uniform. So for right now, I don't know if he's going to start. Nobody does, but we think that he's able to and get himself back in the lineup. But anybody that recovers from a Achilles injury, and I think most recently some of the basketball players like Kobe or
Kevin
Kevin
Durant,
or any of the guys that have gone through something like that. It is a very serious injury, and it is a very time-consuming recovery period. It can be done, but a lot of times they say, you're not the same player. Well, we hope that he is, but for obvious reasons. So this is on the good news. There's one that's back. By the way, Brian, I think I went too fast. Did you say there was somebody just before we went on the air that you wanted to bring up in terms of somebody who just got hurt in practice recently?
Rashawn Slater, tackle for the Chargers. They just paid him too. Like literally a couple of days, he got a massive contract extension, and then in
Yep.
practice, something happens. He slipped. He just weight underneath him, and boom, his knee's gone. So he's out for the year.
Wow.
The Chargers actually moving Joe Alt to left tackle now to kind of offset that a little bit. But yeah, no, it's that team has kind of battled injuries since Herbert's been there. It's been up and down, but he's out for the year. I'm not sure if he's had surgery yet, but kind of a blow for the Chargers. How severe? Obviously, when you lose your left tackle, that's a big deal. But when you have a guy like
Sure.
Alt who can slide over,
Yep.
that's kind of nice. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that wasn't even a preseason game. That was earlier in the week. That was
Yeah.
I think it was. I don't even know if it was a joint practice. I think it was just a practice. And
Yeah.
freak things happen. That's what happens in the sport, right? Guys get hurt all the time. You can
Yeah.
you can get hurt walking down onto the practice field. You slip and boom. Next thing you know, it sucks.
There's nothing funny about it, but in one of those things, you're just walking.
Yeah.
One of my teammates at Colorado State, Kevin Call, he's in what part of Indiana were they at? He's with the Colts, St. Andrews College or something like that. And just coming out of the cafeteria, is eating, bam, bolt of lightning hits the tree. It bounces off the tree. It hits him, knocks him 6 feet back. He's okay, but I'm saying you never know. You're at training camp,
You
and
never know. Yeah.
I don't know if he had just signed a big deal and got paid back in the day, but it has happened, and we just mentioned how goofy some things are sometimes. But
Freak things happen all the time. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, let's look at another good aspect of returning from an injury, and the Jets fans are certainly going to appreciate the fact that the defensive end Jermaine Johnson, he's been activated. He had been on the physically unable to perform list, and in 2023, 7.5 sacks and a Pro Bowl. Last year, he gets injured in week 2, right? So high expectations against Tennessee. We've just been talking about Tennessee a little bit there. He's been out for 11 months, and Aaron Glenn says he should be ready for week 1. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be ready.
Right.
We certainly hope that he is, but you're going to take this guy and bring him back a little bit more slowly, a little more patiently, I believe. You're going to want to see him play, but you're not going to want to see him get hurt again in a preseason game. So this is probably going to be a controlled scrimmage type thing for him over the next couple of weeks. But again, Jets fans are certainly delighted that Jermaine Johnson is back in the action.
Yeah, I don't know. Was that game at MetLife? Did the MetLife? No, it was at Tennessee. Okay, because you know how the MetLife turf there, man. They a lot of people say, hey, the turf monster will get you there, but it's good that he's back. I think a lot of these guys, you feel as close to 100%, I guess, with the Achilles that you possibly can. But it's just one of those things where maybe a lot of times this is a 12, 15-month injury, right? It was a lot of times a death sentence. You go back 10, 15 years ago, where if you get an Achilles, you're kind of done.
Yep.
But the fact that he's able to come back and he's off the PUP list and he's, probably not going to go full speed for a while, but, maybe get some individual drills in, try to get your strength back a little bit, get back into actual football work. But it's good to hear that he's able to do that.
Well, another good thing that happened, it doesn't go in the record book, but we saw a record for preseason, right? Nobody's ever kicked a 70-yard field goal before until now. It's unbelievable. Cam Little here with Jacksonville, a second-year kid out of Arkansas, was a 6th-round draft pick, so they wanted him. They kind of made their way. And you look at that long stride; he almost looks like he's a soccer player, right? And he's 6'1", he's about 170 pounds, so he's got a soccer player's build. I please beg you, Cam, go in the weight room and do something. Just move anything. You'll be stronger. I promise you. But if you're kicking 70-yarders, and you're not going to get a whole lot of opportunities, but to know that he can, I think 60 would be fair in a regular game to make multiple attempts, but
why not?
But there were just a couple. I think there were 6 seconds on the clock with the half. So even if it turned out to be like that Alabama-Auburn game where it goes all the way to the 9 yards deep and it's a 109-yard return for a touchdown, they were willing to take the chance. But you can see the team on the right jumping up and down. That was a pretty great moment there in Jacksonville.
Shame it doesn't count, officially. That's a clip that I'm sure he'll show his kids at some point if he never, if he never kicks anyone further than that. But he say, hey, I technically own the record for the longest kick in NFL history. But then in his own words, he said he feels like this is kind of the first of many. I think you're kind of seeing a trend where you got guys coming in the league now that can boot it from 60, 65 consistent. Like Brandon Aubrey is a guy who, if the Cowboys get the ball near midfield, they feel like they got a chance to score points. And the dynamic of the game changes if you feel like you can do that, especially if you're a warm weather team, an indoor team. Might be a little tougher if you're like the Jets or the Giants or the Bears or, the Packers. But for everyone else, man, that's a game changer. It's a big deal.
Yeah. You go to Cleveland in November with the wind blowing and all that kind of stuff. You got the ball even near half midfield. You've got a chance for
like
at least something.
Chance.
But then again, you also have a chance to go wide right. But last year was 27 out of 29, and he had 108 total points, if I'm not mistaken. So real good year. First year was excellent, and now he's building off of that with certainly a momentum builder for him. He's still cheap, I would imagine, in terms of what it's going to cost, but he's certainly looking at Pro Bowl appearances if he keeps doing stuff like that.
I was going to say, I think the chances of making the team, or at least ensuring his roster spot, probably less than zero, right?
I would say less than zero. Yeah.
Yeah, not making the team. I think he's. Hey, we've seen enough. I don't even think we need to bring in another kicker. I think we're good. Yeah.
I don't think Pele or Ronaldo or Cristiano. No, nobody's going to.
I think we're good here. I think we're good.
Not there.
Jacksonville's good at kicker. Not a lot else, but they're good at kicker.
They can kick, man. Yeah. I'm telling you right now. All right, let's take a look. If you don't mind, Brian, we're going to wrap up the show here pretty quick. But Tampa wins in week 1 of preseason. Everyone else, New Orleans, Carolina, and Atlanta all end up being losers. I know it doesn't matter in terms of the standings. I'm just saying that Tampa, they have 29 points. Baker Mayfield played a little, if I'm not mistaken, but as much as any, they only gave up 7 against who'd they play? The Niners?
Tennessee.
So,
Tennessee.
I'm just telling you right now. I think it's Tampa's division to win, and I'm not saying that just because they won one game. I just think that they could have a 3 or 4 game losing streak and still be able to catch anybody that's in front of them. The way it stands right now, am I wrong?
No, I think what you said to start kind of epitomized the last 2 years, where Tampa Bay wins and everyone else in the division loses. If I had $1 for every time I heard that over the last 2-3 years, I mean, it's honestly kind of laughable. But I think Tampa's one of the few teams though where preseason is nice, but we know what we have. They added some young talent at receiver. I think they're still, the old adage is if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man, right? So every other team in this division is looking at Tampa, and Tampa say, hey, we've been here 2-3 years now. You can't dethrone us. Someone has to win the South. Someone has to host that playoff game. The Falcons and the Panthers, I think, are kind of gunning for it. I think they would like to say, hey, maybe it's our turn. New Orleans, I think, maybe wants to go in the other direction, maybe tank for Arch. I don't know. But, Tyler didn't look that bad for the Saints. He looked okay. It wasn't great. I mean, that pick 6 wasn't, exactly how you want your preseason to go. But, I mean, everything else looked pretty solid. He did throw a touchdown. Tenero McMillan had a nice catch. So, the Panthers, obviously, upside there. I don't think Penix, Robinson, London, I don't think anybody that's going to start for the Falcons really saw a lot of playing time. DeMarco Hellams looked pretty good, though, which is interesting. You look at that safety battle where you bring in Xavier Watts. Obviously, I think Jesse Bates probably has the safest safety job in the league right now. But, a lot of good, like we said, a lot of good, a lot of bad, some ugly. But the Bucs are they're the toast of the town right now. And until you beat them, I don't think that's going to change.
Well, let's take a look at the woulda, coulda, shoulda world of fantasy in football. I want to take you to Los Angeles.
Yes.
We got a situation here.
Yeah.
Houston, we have a problem, but it's in L.A.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford practiced on Saturday. He threw 68 passes in practice. And Sunday they did not practice, but they had a practice here today, and he did not participate. I'm concerned, if I'm a Rams fan, about what they're telling me about the condition of my starting quarterback. At this juncture, to have a guy who throws a few passes and 68, if you're counting them, and that includes warm-ups and everything like that, that's a red flag.
Yeah, pitch count. Yeah, that is a red flag.
But he's got a bad back. Now, I don't know where it is. I don't know if it's middle, lower, upper. I don't know. And I don't need to know. But I think the way that they're protecting him right now is a surefire sign that he's nowhere close to being ready to play. What do you think is an alternative solution? Stetson Bennett has turned
He
his
looked
life
okay.
around, and
He did
he's
look
done all
okay.
right,
Yeah.
but he hasn't done it in a real game for a while.
Right.
Um, in the pros at all, but in college, so it's been a couple years.
Yeah.
Pretty successful there. 2 national championships. I'm all right with that.
Not too bad. Yeah.
I just don't know though. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you think, especially when we talk about the NFC South, that might be in play possibly here before the season starts?
Well, the NFC South seems to be, other than the Bucks, kind of a quarterback carousel, right? Like, I think the obvious answer from our perspective, you're a Falcons fan, say, hey, we have Kirk Cousins right here. You know, if you'd like to give us a pick and maybe take some of his money off the books for us, it might be a little late to really do a lot of good with that money, but something to think about. And then Andy Dalton's still there in Carolina. He's a guy that's bounced around a lot. He just, he's still looking to play football. But back injuries are real tricky. I remember telling you this story. I was watching NFL Live. This was years ago. They had Mark Schlereth on, and he was talking about how he's like, hey, I had multiple knee surgeries, right? Came back from all of them. Had the one back surgery, was never the same. He said, I trade all 3 knee surgeries to have, I'd have 3 more knee surgeries to avoid the back surgery if I could. So I'm not saying it's that bad where Stafford needs surgery. I'm not saying anything along those lines, but he was expected back. He was not back, which means he either re-aggravated or it's worse than they thought or something along those lines. And he's an older guy. Obviously, Stafford's pushing 40, or I think he's right there. But especially your quarterback, when you got a bad back and it's hard to do, it's hard to get a jar off the top shelf, let alone play football. So,
Yeah.
Again, I don't know. They're kind of maybe they're just keeping him out precautionary. But I mean, like you said earlier, he's on a pitch count, and that's a little bit concerning in and of itself.
Yeah, the fact that he can't go more than a day in practice without missing one because he's stiff and sore. I get it if you're recovering from surgery, but the fact that you haven't had anything, and I'm not putting him under the knife. I'd prefer not to have that happen.
Yeah.
But at this point where you've just finished your first week in the preseason, you've only got 2 more. You get another week off, and then it's go time, and you still don't know if this guy can practice. That is and they're playing it down. They always do. Bill Belichick used to do it all the time. Week 1, he'd put Tom Brady's shoulder for the rest of the year, so he wouldn't have to answer those kind of questions. I think Sean McVay is avoiding those kind of questions right now. Someone asked him about surgery. He goes, "Oh, we haven't even discussed that." Yes, you have. Stop it. Don't tell me you haven't.
That's probably the first thing you think of,
you
right?
You're not doing your job if you haven't discussed whether or not this guy is if that's not a possibility. I don't want it. You don't want it. Nobody wants it. Matthew doesn't want it. But you got to at least discuss that and try to figure it out. So we'll see. Right. But the Saints have quarterbacks. You mentioned Carolina, the Falcons. So once again, the NFC South may be coming into play a little bit because
maybe Tanner McKee with the Eagles. He looked like future Hall of Famer against the Bengals first team.
What were his numbers? Did you remember? Was it 17 or 23 or something?
They were good. I think it was 20 of 25. I think it was 20, 25, 252. I think he had either 2 or 3 total touchdowns. I'll give it to you just a second. But yeah, he was. He looked like it was on 20, 25, 252, 2 passing touchdowns, and then a tush push touchdown. That's if you were to swap his name with Jalen Hurts, I'd say it's a regular season Jalen Hurts game, right?
Well, Tyler Shuff, you went through him. Jackson Dart,
looked
Sanders. Good. There's a couple of young guys that got a chance to play. Dylan Gabriel didn't, if I'm not mistaken, but there's a few guys that did. They got a chance to impress, and in McKee's situation, he did. Good for him.
Yeah. Everything. Shador was. I know a lot of people are. That's with everything that happened with the draft. All eyes are on him. But Tanner McKee, he was. Everyone was talking about him. Everyone's watching it. Obviously, you're gonna have a minimal audience preseason football, but he looked good. And I don't necessarily think there might be a team who's going to start him, but if there's a guy that's like, hey, if you guys are going to keep him, maybe we'll as a backup, as a project, whatever. Because I think Philadelphia feels pretty confident at the quarterback position for at least the next 5, 6, 7 years. But maybe they need to send Howie another 3rd rounder. They can turn into another Pro Bowl on his offense.
Well, it's more than just brownie points. It's especially with your linemen, with your wide receivers. Hey, dude, can you get the ball to us? And I remember this vividly when Ben Roethlisberger took over the starting job with the Steelers, even in the announcer's booth. We know the coaches have told him, don't mess this up. We've got a good team, right?
Yeah.
Don't give the ball away. Just let the offense kind of flow. We're not depending on you. We're good enough to where we can get by with our running game. And on 3rd and 7, let's get a 9-yard completion. You don't have to go deep all the time. And I think that relaxed him to the point where he goes, okay, I'll do what they tell me to do. I'll hit the swing pass. Yes, we'll punt a few times because I didn't make the right read, but I didn't lose the game either. And next thing you know, we're in the playoffs, and 2-3 years later, I'm winning the Super Bowl. So there's a certain aspect of that makes sense and rings true.
I feel like there's a team for player development though, and a team where you feel like you have enough talent, enough influence, and you have the right guys in your ear. I feel like Philadelphia is kind of the place, where I don't, if Tanner was in, Jacksonville, it might not be the same thing, but yeah, it looked good. I think all the young quarterbacks look good. At times, obviously, it's, some mistakes, but that's going to happen. It's week 1 of the preseason, and it is what it is. Let's wait and see how many of these guys are starting. Maybe week 4, week 5 in the regular season, or maybe not at all. I don't know, but it is what it is. It's fun to talk about, and it was a good first week to experience.
Yeah, I agree. And any final thoughts you have before we head out for the end of this week 1 episode? But I just wanted to pick your brain. Is there anything else in particular stick out? Any player, team, or other update that you have?
Nothing really, other than
Okay.
for everybody, we should probably see more starters next week. I think next week is where you're going to start. That's where you want to guys, have your guys come in. If your starters are saying, "Oh, we're hitting that out route, that timing is good," you want to see the slants, you want to see the time. That's really what you want to see next week. You want to see the starters play minimal reps because most of them are not going to play in the 3rd week. Let's get our work in. Let's go through the motions. Let's do everything we need to do, and let's get as close to ready for week 1 as we can with limited reps and limited playing time.
Yeah, with not a whole lot really to go on. It's funny, the AFC South, no one won, right? Jacksonville,
Yeah.
Indianapolis, Houston, and Tennessee. I am getting a little concerned if I'm a 49er fan. They lost badly, and they've got some issues there.
Yeah.
And Buffalo losing one. I'm not really concerned about Buffalo. That they could go 0-4, and I'm not really going to worry too much.
As long as 17 is playing quarterback week 1, I'm feeling pretty good about my chances. Yeah.
Yeah. If I've got 3 or 4 of the 5 offensive line there to protect him too, and Kansas City lost only by 3, but yeah. Really, who cares, right? I
think something interesting. Andy Reid, I learned it this week. Andy Reid makes his players, the starters, stay in uniform the whole game. You like that? You hate that? What do you think even for the preseason?
Oh, absolutely, I like it. Yeah,
you like it? Okay.
Yeah, if I'm a teammate and I see my other guy that he doesn't have to dress,
yeah,
I have an issue with that. Years ago, I was done, but when Tony Gonzalez was not even asked to come to training camp until 2 weeks into it. I thought that was going to be a real deal breaker for a lot of guys on the team, and it was a separator. Everyone respects Tony because of his ability, and he's a Hall of Famer. There's no question about that. But why does he get the week? That there's a equality issue that not everybody's treated the same. I get it, but when you do it right in front of me, again, I think that was more of a barrier than a chemistry builder. So and big deal. You're wearing a uniform, even though you're not going to play. Just be a part of the team.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Patrick Mahomes in full uniform after doing interviews week 1 preseason.
He's going to be doing it for the next 17 weeks. So I don't have a problem with that. So. Anyways, all right, unless there's anything else, Brian, we're going to say thanks to everybody for joining here today. We would like to have a quick little shout out for the 9 Golf. If you're not playing simulated golf and you'd like to know a little bit more about it, go to the 9 Golf. Now spell it out, NINE, the9golf.com. If you want ball and club speed to be measured, launch angles, spin rate, your carry and total distance, as well as the club face angles that you would be going over. It really is a great coaching tool to learn more about your game and how to make little corrections that will have you hitting the ball straighter and further down the fairways, and your scoring will go down accordingly. They have a tournament on September 6th the inaugural fall tournament that you have. Go to The Nine Golf for more news about it. You can book a bay, lessons, club fittings, and membership are all available at the9golf.com. So thank you so much for everybody tuning in. We appreciate it. For Brian LaBelle, co-host right here, I'm Harper LaBelle saying thank you for being a part of the NFL show. This has been our preseason preview. This is week number 1. Week number 2 will come about 7 days from now. So thank you for tuning in, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your day.